Forget that.
I'd like to share a quick response to what you just said.
Please.
Um, I I've had five major teachers in my life, and I think most of you know by now, or some of you know that I worked very, 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 very closely with the Beatles guru Maharishi Mahesh Yogi for 5 years. But I had a teacher named Leslie Temple Thurston, and one of her things was teaching us about um, polar opposites and the resolution of the opposite and the ascension point, which was above the polar opposite, and the declension point, which was below the polar opposite. And that, as you said, a big part of our spiritual evolution is in resolving the polarities, and in, unifying everything that, seemed kind of opposite or, contradictory or in conflict or whatever. So, what you just said about that, inspired me to say what I just said.
Thank you for sharing. Well, howdy everybody. How's it all going? It's good to see all these faces. I wasn't able to make the community call on Sunday, so this is feeling like a long last meeting with all these familiar faces. It's really good to see everybody here. Um, Following with kind of I don't know, Ariane, how do we what's Elizabeth is, I don't know, she's like this facilitator and a community process facilitator. She really kind of opened my eyes up in being opening meetings with kind of a space for people to share. So Mark went first, kind of, but I just want to leave room for anybody here who is coming to this meeting with anything that they'd like to broadcast out to your family, who's ready to listen and hear it. Can be about the pretty or stormy day you had, or something more practical, serious. It's all open. Hmm. We can't hear you.
I'd just like to say hello to everyone to start with. Aloha, sending love, and say I'm happy to be here with all of you.
Thank you, Tutu. For those who don't know, Tutu has an amazing. If you could, Tutu, put your link in the chat, don't you? You have an amazing platform. Like, you're doing this amazing food forest work, and I know there's some of us in the community that are jumping on that bandwagon here very soon, and all of us would appreciate the resource if you're comfortable sharing that.
Oh, sure. Yes, I'm very happy to share it. That's my mission, is to share like everything that I've learned from the land. And I was just listening to some more of the Anastasia books today, the book 10 and then the book 5. And I was like, I feel like so connected with the movement in Russia, the Kin's domain movement. It's so beautiful. And I feel like I'm so blessed to have come to this old Kin's domain that I live on, that somebody else started 60 years ago. So I get this perspective of what it's like to be on somebody else's old Kin's domain. And from there, when I learned, I moved here 10 years ago, and I've been really learning and observing from the trees and from the ecosystem. And that's the content of all my books and my thing. And it's so funny because I was going along doing this since I think 2012. And it wasn't until this year that I discovered the Anastasia and the ringing cedars. And I was like, I'm so blown away by it all. I feel so connected to her, to Anastasia, and to the future vision. The what is it? So, restore the pristine land. No, that's not it. What are the 4 words?
Oh, perfect the dwelling land.
Yes, yes, that's it. I love that.
I think I might have the link I put into the chat is a little bit altered, but it's her website is alohafoodforest.com, correct?
Yes,
Okay, cool,
yes,
cool. Yeah, she has a lot of videos and stuff up there.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'm working on compiling everything that I've learned, which is I've put it into 2 different books. One is like an introduction to food forests, and the other one is how to create a food forest. But I'm putting it all together into a TED talk, where it can all be, I'm like condensed down into the best sentences that mean the most, that says it all in a shorter time. And I have a couple opportunities where I'm sharing it live in my community. And when I get it done, if you'd like, I'd love to share it live with you guys.
Yeah, that would be so cool. That
It's
would
going to
be
be a
awesome.
slide presentation. A slide presentation. Yeah. And I could keep it down to whatever amount of time, because I want to be able to do it in like 5 minutes or 45 minutes, depending on how much people want to hear.
I would personally be totally cool with if you want to get in touch with me and taking 30 or 45 minutes of this call. You know, we could start the call, introduce, and then maybe like let the, you know, do some extra, not advertising, but letting people know, promoting it. And if you're wanting to do the slide deck presentation kind of at this call, the Kins Domain Design call, I'd be more than happy to give the floor over to you if that's something you're wanting to do.
Oh, sure, I would love to. And at the very least, it would stimulate conversations and ideas, and we
Totally.
can, you know, bounce things back and forth.
Totally. Yeah, because I mean, there's so many different ways. I mean, there's this guy who, I mean, this is like the OG Bible.
Oh,
You know, Martin Crawford. This is like the OG Food Forest Bible, but there's tons of ways to do it, you know, and then like each climate is different as well. His climate that he's talking about in here is Great Britain, and it's kind of like it doesn't freeze, but it also does not get very warm. So he's
oh yes.
you know, it's different when you get into these tropical areas. And um but yeah, thank you for sharing, Tutu. That's amazing news. I want to honor Mark.
Wonderful. You're
Oh,
welcome.
Mark, you have your hand up. Yeah.
Yeah, Tutu, you said you were listening to the books, and I wasn't aware that there were audio versions of them.
Yeah, I'll put them in the chat right now. Well, I wouldn't say that they're certified audio versions. Like it's not like McGree himself put out audio versions, but there's people who have recorded the books.
That's
Yes.
what I listen to on YouTube. I listen to Jessica Schwab and Lime Green Roofs.
Yeah,
I don't know if you know them.
Yeah, I like lime green. When I was listening to the books, I like lime green. I just like that one. No. She has a really good voice. Like I would listen and I'd be like, "Oh, she's getting into this. I'm feeling it." Like, you know. Um, I'll try to put.
Did you put links to both of them?
Yes, I will. Yeah, here's Jessica. Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Yeah. Jorge, hello. Good to see you. Today's topic? Well, I had some things that come to mind, just kind of letting it free flow for now. Um, but have a couple of ideas, but we're on a jive train right now.
Anastasia.
I'm getting these links in there for people. I would say like this is helpful. Sometimes I don't feel like listening. I don't really actually listen to music while I drive at most of the time. But sometimes if I feel like listening to something other than that, I will I'll plug this in. Don't know what that was. Here we go. Yeah, lime green mousse. Yeah, I personally recommend this latter link I sent. I think she has the best kind of voice. The person who's reading it definitely has some effect on the reception of the material, especially when you're not reading it for yourself. It's the narrator is important.
Yeah, I agree. Jessica sounds like a young lady who's like a young mom reading to her kids, and she'll interrupt the story and say, "Oh, my kitty cat did this," or "Oh, wait a second, I have to sneeze," or something like that. So for me, it cracks me up that she does that. But I think Lime Green was more, like you said, she has a great voice. She's more polished.
For sure, for sure.
Well, while we're on this little jive train, I just want to share a little bit about some of the recent events that are happening with us. And the reason I'm sharing it is to help remind people the importance of holding a vision and feeling it and having conviction behind it. Because what's happening in our lives now is we continue to get the appropriate stepping stones for the phases that we're in. We, a little while ago, created this vision board that we have at the foot of our bed. And a lot of it does have imagery from the Ring Cedars book. And this artist, I'm struggling to remember his name, but the one that's really creating a lot of this incredible, vivid, detailed imagery has been a great tool for us. Yeah, okay, we've already put it away. Anyway, the reason I say that is being able to hold this vision has allowed many circumstances to come our ways. The last place we lived in, we ended up getting a small home on a 26-acre property. And that introduced us to the concept of being on a larger piece of land and the care that's involved and so on. I'm not going to get into those details. All that to say, now at the end of the month, we have to relocate to a new space. And it came down to 3 weeks timeline before we were finally able to find something. So it really gave us an opportunity to trust and to connect with the community. And now we're going to find ourselves on a half-acre property that already has a few established trees. Like it's going to have hazelnut, chestnut, walnut, blueberry bushes, blackberry bushes, plum trees. And so we feel so fortunate to be able to continue to get these little stepping stones for the phases that we're at. And we're continuing to hold that vision. So I don't want to take more time. Just wanted to share that.
That's a brilliant, such an exciting share. Because I think it's like, yeah, like what you're saying is really key. Like we're all like wanting to like leap out of our chest into this new future. And they say in the books like the balance of the spiritual and the material is like imminent. Like it has to be, we can't we're wanting to go and garden and do all these things, but it's really cool to see like you have this soul desire, like I want to learn more about food forests and things like that. And then boom, it happens, like the perfect playground.
Add to that is throughout the journey, because like I said, it's only in the last week or so that we finally found this place. And we were, there was a little bit of antsiness because it's like, okay, 3 weeks from now, we have to leave this place and we don't know still where we're going to end up. But up until that moment, we had a few opportunities through old circles, old cycles, safety blankets, safety nets that were there that we could have opted for, which would have put us maybe back into another old cycle, a repeating pattern. But we had trust and conviction to ask for what we wanted and know that it would be coming our way. And so by saying no to these safe options, it unlocked this incredible opportunity for us.
Yeah, I want to emphasize what you just said there, Wyatt, about we want to jump in right away and have the domain right away and have the settlement right away. And, you know, and we're realizing, Stefan and I, the value of taking like very practical steps, very simple steps, and to take away the pressure of there's no time and we need to rush this. And when that is completely removed, it makes space for absolutely, it just makes space for so much breathing room and relief and joy and
Baby steps.
yeah.
Right? We're like, hey, we have this lettuce. Are we going to throw it in the garbage? No. Compost? No. Hey, what if we just put it in water? Oh, look, we're growing another lettuce.
Well, that's a celery.
Or celery.
And this is
meant to say.
cabbage.
Yeah.
One cabbage stump, there's like 5. Okay, I was in the middle of saying something. Could
I'm
you
sorry.
stop?
I'm supporting your point. It's baby steps. We
I
don't
don't
want to
even
jump any
remember what I
guns.
was saying.
We're talking about gentle.
Okay, so I'm gonna stop blushing and try and remember what I
baby
was saying.
steps. Not jumping.
Not jumping ahead, like in this home, we're likely going to be in this home. Sorry, I'm a little red right now. We're likely going to be in this home for a couple years. And a part of me is like, but why am I not going to be on the domain in a couple years? And it's like, yeah, but it's a rental. This will be your domain. Like wherever you are that's the space of love is wherever you are. And that's where the space of love is. And that's where you start to really remove all the pressure and expectation and to work, you know, so fundamentally where you are with joy. So yeah, we know that we will acquire the tactile skills in this rental home with this food forest. And then when the time is ready, the domain will show up. No pressure, no pressure, right? So I wanted to highlight what you were saying there, Wyatt, because it's very valuable. And what you said too is very valuable.
Yeah, so
too.
we start with what we can with what we have, you know. We have chia seeds. Okay, we've been making chia pudding. Now we're making microgreens. And sprouts.
Right.
Okay.
Right. You got to do what you got to do.
Showing the whole garden, showing the sprouts. Yeah.
I'm fully expecting like a detailed walkthrough video tour of this place when you get it. Just have that known. With Stefan narrating the whole thing, you know?
Yeah.
And then some hang pan music, some hand drum music. That would be great.
He brought in the celery, everyone. He brought the celery in. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Don't throw out your vegetable stubs, everyone. Put them in water and they'll sprout and you can grow. Wyatt, you could probably talk all about that.
Yeah, I mean the perennial nature of God's gift to mankind is perennial and perpetual, really. It's like it doesn't end. Even things that like after a certain period can't regrow, you know, they like can go to flower and go to seed. And then like, I mean, I don't plant mustards in my garden anymore. Like I just have mustard everywhere. And when I don't want it, I pluck it out and eat it. It's like, you know, we're like setting forth this program that's going to take care of us. And these like little steps like you guys are talking about of like just being mindful of like, okay, I could throw this in the compost and that would be good, but what's the best option? Like what's good for me right now? It's inspiring me to share what Kristen, she's not here today. Kristen and Carrie live just a little bit north of me, and I was up at their place, and she has all these just kind of, you know, weeds around her place. And, you know, we were talking about, oh, are you going to do a garden and do whatever? And she just made a really good point, you know, just highlighting what you're saying, Ariane, that it doesn't matter that we're not in the space of love now. Like we're supposed to be leaving a legacy of love behind us, a legacy of a green planet, of a planet who is used to the tender touch of a human, not the machete touch, you know? So I think it's a brilliant reminder, especially this is perfect timing too with spring. I mean, like trees are blooming outside and everything. Like this is really a key time for, I think, us all to get some dirt under our fingernails.
And I would just like to add one thing about what you're saying about your rental place too, Ariane. In this temporary lifetime, even the most permanent of things so far, maybe not once we all have our kin domains, but it feels very temporary to me. even though I quote unquote own this place, I'm still like a tenant, right? So making it your beautiful space of love and perfecting it is the right way to go.
Yeah, I was drawn to connect to those sentiments as well, because I feel like I have so many friends that are in the same situation, and in the last couple of years have landed themselves at, like, mostly actually this year, after a couple of years of like intention, have landed themselves in sort of quote unquote temporary rental situations or communal situations, commune, a friend in Australia, and then another friend here in Nova Scotia, who's again a gentleman that wanted to start, sharing space. And so they were invited to rent on his land. And there was, the same feelings of like, well, but they want to create their own space. And how do you navigate these, like, this feeling of temporary, and do you plant things or do you not plant things? And like, how do you eke out that space? And I was thinking about that too, around like how, how wherever we go, we can create the space of love. And if we do plant a berry bush or a tree, how beautiful that is. Like what Tutu was saying, how now she's inherited land that's been loved, and over 60 years of those contributing pieces. And I just feel like, I think about that a lot, like on our land, when we start to do things like, and it's funny when you said about the machete, because everybody's kind of at their own place with their evolution. And I know when I first started talking about what my visions were and what I wanted to create on our land, my husband, was like, I said, I want to take a year and just look at everything and make decisions, like just dream for one whole year. And like within a month, my husband had the tractor out and was like, right here, do you want the garden right here? And I was like, and I was premenstrual, and there's like this moment within that week that I have like a lot of like, I don't do well with the masculine approach to the earth. And so I was like, take that thing, don't put that thing in the ground. Like I was so mad, like so mad. And then I had to like really own that. And then we had to discuss it, and then recognize that like we're all on different like levels, or like not levels, that's the wrong word. We're all in a different like process of our own evolution. And then, fast forward to now, and my husband in the last couple of weeks has like planted over, what did he say today? He was counting them, like 70 trees, I think, that he's transplanted to make a living fence. So he's just found them, like mostly in the woods, and young pines and not pines, young spruce, and to make these living fences. And he's doing it all by hand, and he's like so gentle with them. And like, so it's just been like this total, I don't know, just this evolution where I see how like we're all where we are, and it's always beautiful. And the more that you just like, I don't know, the more I feel like that, like we are creating a space of love, like wherever we are, the more that space of love is being created. And so I just wanted to add sort of that kind of like connection around how I feel like we're all journeying on this. Like it's this beautiful evolution, and it looks so different for every individual. So yeah.
Yeah, echoing what Ariane just wrote in the chat. That's so super beautiful. I was envisioning your husband going and digging up these spruces in the woods, and like talking to the tree as he's picking up the tree, and being like, I'm gonna put you here because this is your spot, like you can see all that. So that's such a really cool image. Especially I know what you mean about the revulsion to these super masculine earthworks. It's really horrific, the damage we've caused. And I think it's quite a natural reaction to want to go back to the more balanced perspective there. Yeah, what was coming up for me too is that, you know, like as you're saying this, we're also, as Stefan was saying, you know, we're laying the pavers down, we're prepping ourselves, you know, like I think the full reality is I've been asking myself this question. If I was given my land, if I was walking barefoot on my land in 6 months, would I be ready for it? And the honest answer is no. No, I would not be. And I have no shame, because it's like, no, I'm not. Whoa, that's a lot. You know what I mean? Like, wow. I mean, like everything that is involved in that is huge. Like we're, you know, what she says is the man who goes and creates land in this intentional way is like smarter than a college. Like his thought level like has to be faster and more in depth than a college professor. So it's just interesting. Like I think what we're all doing is really giving ourselves the time and the experience. We're calling in the exact experience we need at the moment that we need to prep ourselves, to give ourselves the next step of, this is what it feels like to have plants that like recognize my internal state and respond to that and can like affect me, you know, like that's like totally new information for most people, you know, in the regular modern world, you know, that's like, oh, cut me some lettuce for my cheeseburger, you know. It's like, whoa, hold on a second, you know, hold on. So I think this is a really fitting topic for the season, the time of the year, and for the steps that we're all taking, you know, like we have a lot of people that are moving and starting things, planting gardens for the first time I've seen. I'm thinking of Sound a Train. That's his name on Telegram, is Danesh. There's so many people that are sticking their fingers literally in the soil, maybe for the first time or for the first time in a new place. And it's really beautiful to hear the stories of Stefan and Jewel and really kind of bring it all together in a good merriment, like solidifying this consciousness in us all that like, this is important stuff, you know? What was I reading? To understand God is to understand nature, you know? To understand nature is to understand God, both ways. So it's like, I mean, we're just getting to know his thoughts and that whole design. So
I'm sorry, I just wanted to add too, like, I know that, yeah, there's like a piece there that I didn't quite thread through that, like, it feels important, which is like, and I feel like someone mentioned it earlier, maybe it was Tutu, just in that we are all like visitors here, and even the concept of like owning land, you know, is kind of it's a construct, right? Because I think like that's a piece that like we can feel like we are stewards and the caring for the land without any even like direct lines and borders. And this is like an important piece because you can connect directly to spirit, to her, no matter where, right? And that, I think that too is like, it's just, it feels like really important to like honor that piece, that we're in something that is regenerative, that's constantly changing, and we may stake out a piece of it to care for at some point in our lives, but wherever we are, we're caring, you know, we're acknowledging and honoring, and you can be on a piece of land, like we've been on this land for a long time now. What year is it? Whatever, I think we bought the land in 2005 or something, or 2004. And like today's the first day that we ever drank birch water from the birch trees on our own land, you know? So for however many years, we kind of weren't even in relationship in a sense with those trees. And now every day for the last 3 weeks, me and my sons have gone and put our hands on those trees and looked to see if the water was coming, and talked to the trees, and like we cleaned up all around them. That was the stuff that had fallen over. And so it's like you can be present, I guess, with wherever you are. And that's what's really about creating the space of love. Yeah, that's what I think.
yeah,
I'm really tired because we had a long day, and I'm actually probably won't last much longer. But
aren't you like in?
Yeah, time here is 9:30, and I had some calls right before this. So I've been online all day, like a lot today. So I'm just feeling a little bit, yeah.
Whatever you have to give us is amazing. Your stories, I remember I'm still ringing from your last stories about, birth and your son, new souls, old souls, all
Mhm.
that. Definitely check out some of the recordings if you guys weren't here for that on YouTube. Great call.
Thanks.
Yeah, what was coming up, Jewel, for me as well, like when you were saying that, is like I remember reading in the books, they're saying, she's like, you can make this domain fast if you like, but it won't be as complete or something. Like she doesn't use the word complete, but it's it it's like meaning, like she says, like of course, like if you want to go out and in this short amount of time you have a deadline and you need to make it happen, you can do that and it's not bad. But she's like, there's so much more merit, basically, is what she's saying. I'm kind of not using the correct quote, but she was just saying that there's more merit in taking our time, and like you're saying, like instead of being like, I'm going to tap maple trees and birch trees and walnut trees, because you can get walnut sap and water as well, all these things, and you're like, I'm just focusing on birch or something. Like I know for me that's been as a gardener, and a lot of gardeners could think like this, like, so how many plants do we need to start this year? Yeah, just start an extra dozen tomato. We just go beyond, go big or go home. And it's like, well, there is this truth in being like calm with it all, because you can really focus. I remember looking at Vik Anton and Vika's, yeah, that's how I'm pronouncing it right. They're on Instagram. They have a Kin's domain in Russia. They operate their own store. And I remember looking, and I was reading some of her things and translating them, and she was saying, this year we are deciding to scale back so that we can put more of our attention on what we do have going into the ground. We're not going to plant as many vegetables, but we're going to really be like intentional and plant these vegetables in a really conscious way and communicate with these plants. And for me, my brain was immediately like, well, yeah, but sure. I mean, what about your? And then I'm like, my heart's like, dude, just listen. Don't you, like? There's truth in that. There's truth in just starting small and then moving forward in these gradual steps. So, welcome,
Aloha.
Laura.
I
Aloha.
just wanted to share, yeah. So I had a little visual exercise that seemed to really work, like just work so well. Was 2 years ago I started just this when I would pray to my food before I eat, I would visualize each ingredient and like plucking it from my garden, like each single ingredient, and like just imagining that. And then like within a few weeks I ended up on this this property that I'm back at now, where I literally was then just like going to this massive garden that in this permaculture property, and like everything was growing, and I started picking up my food. And then I kind of after a few years, like I did different experimenting with different little prayers for my food, like trying different things. And then it had been a while since I had done that visualization regularly. And then I started doing it again. I ended up back here at the same property, just sort of like, it just like works so much, and now I'm getting so much experience. The guy whose land this is teaches permaculture design, and it's just like so close. I mean, it's interesting. It's a homestead and it's not a farm, but it's like, it's not even yet, it's not quite a space of love either, because his family just moved out, like they're going through a rough time. But it's like I'm learning all the practical skills, and I feel like I'm like adding some love to this land that's like missing its family right now.
What have you been doing lately, Lauren? Like in the garden, what some of the things you've been doing?
I mean, we planted a whole bunch of stuff. We planted, we just harvested a bunch of taro. We're planting squash, cucumbers, tomatoes. There's beans. There's just like I haven't been to a grocery store in like 2 weeks. I'm just eating all my food from the land, besides like I have some nuts that I bought in bulk, and some matcha tea, and that's the only thing that I'm not eating from the land. So it really does work, like just visualizing it, and really, and I just feel like this is preparing me so much for getting on my own land. And like and there's a lot of hard work too. I mean, it's like a wolf like a woofing work trade thing, but it's like every chore, even if it's like, so here in Hawaii, we have this guinea grass that's invasive and it's such a pain to deal with. The roots are so intense and they just grow everywhere. So sometimes we spend just like a few hours like pulling those out of the ground. And I'm like, okay, how can I plan my place so that it doesn't have this like issue or minimizes it, or like, you know, all the chores that have a purpose, even if it's just like, okay, how can I design mine so I don't have to do this chore?
Right. Yeah, that's the beauty of permaculture too, is really designing the problem is the solution. So what's the guinea grass? What can it be used for?
Well,
And
it brought over to Hawaii for feeding cattle.
I see.
So you got to have some cows, really, if you want to make
Or
sure.
some goats, sheep. You
Yeah,
can do
well,
anything.
the landowner has cows, but he pastures them. This is only 5 acres, so he pastures his cows somewhere else.
Oh,
There's a couple sheep, but like they only eat like a little bit. So I'm definitely feeling like our community, it's making me picture a small like little group of community cows, because cows take a lot of land, but like between all the domains, I picture these kind of alleles between all the domains, and like you can easily shuttle the cows to where they need to go. If somebody's like, okay, yeah, my grass is taken over, I need some help, bring the cows over. Because the guy has the cows, but it's like too much work for him to trailer them over to the property every day, or like to do, it's like a whole day of work to bring them here and then a whole day of work to bring them back. So he just has woofers. He's like, oh, you guys can just pull the grass. So
yeah.
I'm going to design it so that you can easily move any large livestock, cows, horses that eat this stuff, you know, and just use electric fences, and like just all these like kind of ideas are popping in my mind.
That's so cool. So are you getting your PDC down there?
I'm not taking an official PDC. I'm just work trading, but the guy's a really good teacher, and you know, he'll stop and talk for 30 minutes about compost if you ask him the right questions. So
Oh,
just like
that's like probably more valuable than a paid course, honestly, that real life experience.
yeah, because I think most PD courses, like if you do them, I don't know. The guy used to teach them here. Right now he's got another job working of permaculture at another property or something. So he's not really doing the teaching, but he's just a natural teacher. So just being around, it's really great experience. Because I grew up on a horse farm. So I had a lot of experience with animals, all kinds of animals, but my mom was never a gardener, so I never had any planting experience. So that's what I'm like. And when I first came here 2 years ago during the pandemic, I was like, I need to get my hands in the dirt and just like learn what it is to garden. And we had like this it's like a 20-year-old food forest, and he's got his garden built up on swales, and like it's
That's awesome. That's awesome. Gosh, that experience just makes me, yeah, gosh, that's such a good experience to be down there, I'm sure. Wow.
it's just giving me time because I don't have to worry about rent or groceries or anything. Like it's just focused my time onto this project and onto what we've been doing with the settlement planning and stuff. And now even I went surfing yesterday, and I just kind of tore my shoulder a little bit, might have popped it out a bit. So I'm like, everything's just making me like, nope, just sit down. Like you got the day off of work, just like sit and like work on these plans. So
That's interesting. I felt the same way today. I felt the same way of like this kind of thing being like, hey, you've been doing a lot lately. Like just hold on. And there was like some little signs, like even bodily signs, like, so it's just interesting, can really reflect what's going on with you here. That's cool.
someone's asking where I'm at. So I'm on Kauai in Hawaii, on the North Shore. I'll have to give you guys a little tour of the property here at some point. I'll film a little walk video and post it on the chat.
Yes, please do. Oh my gosh. Super crazy experience. I'm sure you're having super awesome experience. Yeah, I think it's like one of those things where I think about how practical a step, you know, Stefan and Ariane were talking about the making practical steps, like what a practical step it is to just say like, you know, I'm not maybe into the corporate system, but I want to learn, you know, I got to live. Like a wolfing thing and at a permaculture farm is just like, how more practical and perfect is that to prepare your oneself for like gardening and everything, for like land design, everything. Like if you really taken a step that I think a lot of us in the community are just like, okay, that's a good step. Like, you know, you're taking a step and then we're feeling like maybe we should be doing something similar, you know? because it's really it's a grounded step, you know? It's like taking all this imagery and saying like, now I'm gonna like walk into that imagery. So yeah,
Yeah, really, like I'm getting like a real snapshot of like, just because so as I'm going through the land doing the work here, I get all these, images of like, oh, like I'm gonna do it. This is great. I'm learning the exact skills I need for my land, but also I'm like, well, I kind of want to do mine a little differently here.
yeah.
And his garden has like pigeon peas, and you snap off the pigeon peas and that releases the nitrogen, but then it's full of sticks, and I'm like, how can I make it so I can walk around without like hurting my feet on the sticks, like barefoot? Just funny things that you wouldn't really think about.
Right. No, but you're specializing. That's what's so cool about these domains is, there's these domains will reflect the character of the soul in each of us. Like, that's what's so cool is like you'll be one who's like, yeah, I grow this certain type of pea that sticks, and somebody else is like, I'm growing pigeon peas and I like pigeon peas. So it's cool. Yeah, what Jorge was saying, you're doing the reverse engineering PDC over there. That's a good way of putting it, Jorge. Yeah, you totally are. That's cool, man. Yeah, blessings, Lauren. That's such an exciting journey. We're all there with you in spirit. That's not me, Ariane. That's that there's a I forgot what book. I think it's uh 5 or 4 or maybe 3. Um oh no. Yeah, I just can't hear you. Your thing's muted.
Oh, sorry. We have 2 mics to unmute here. Yeah, that was beautiful. What you said, that you're saying it's not your quote. I still thank you anyway for bringing it into the space. It's really, really beautiful. All these shares are so beautiful. I want to highlight what each of you said, and in particular, going back to what Jewel said about, permitting yourself to be where you are, to be the space of love wherever you are, whether you're in this, small apartment, whether you're in a rental, whether you're in wherever, like you be the space of love. And then when she was speaking, I thought like, well, what if I'll speak for myself. What if I don't, or we don't have that official like ancestral kin's domain in our lifetime? Isn't what we're doing, the steps we're taking now, still massively significant and important? Isn't it still very integral and vitally important? Like, why is it less important that we're taking steps, and let's say we continue to take these steps, these like rental steps or whatever, for the rest of our lives? Like, it's still a legacy, is what I'm trying to say. And it's still something to really be so happy about. It's still a phenomenal contribution. And I find like me just saying these words immediately takes a lot of, I feel like I can stand a bit taller. I feel a bit lighter. And just the fact that we are laying the stones down for future generations, whether we have our ancestral home or not in this lifetime, just the fact that we're laying like really prominent stones right now, all of us, even just being on this call, we're setting stones down. Just think of it. And remember, Anastasia said that we're actually picking up, maybe I made this up, but let me know if I made this up or if we actually read it in the book. Didn't Anastasia say that we're picking up on the thought images of our ancestors? Didn't she say something? The wishes of our ancestors were like literally picking up, we're picking them up right now, like from the ethers, from whatever energetic world, from the universe, and we're like, taking steps to fortify them. Well, we're doing the same for these little ones that are coming in now and haven't come in yet. So I feel like I want to honor all of us wherever the heck we are. It's all important and it's all beautiful. And like having this conversation with all of you and hearing all of you speak, a part of me is like so humbled, really, really humbled. And I'm going to remember that moving forwards into our next phase. So I want to thank all of you for sharing what you just said. It's this is why these community calls are so valuable, aren't they? It just opens up so much. Yeah.
Ariane, I remember in January you were saying I think you were just telling like, well, I remember multiple times on your call you're telling people like, give yourself a pat on the back, like you've made it here. And we haven't said that lately. And I like want to bring that back. Like, that's so true. You know, like we've made it here and we're still walking. Like none of us here are like, I'm turning back. You know, no one's
Yeah.
like, I'm going back where this is not for me, you know. That's what's so cool is like we're here. It's our presence.
Yeah, and I think like echoing what we talked about in the last call too, around how our tone, it's like we're co-regulating with all the other people that are around us in our day, like whether it's like in a work environment or just in our neighborhood or whatever. That's like so important, because if you think about it, like I guess, and I know that in Anastasia's book, she did talk, and I actually really loved her idea around like convicts and like how that could actually like revolutionize their feeling of like just like purpose in existence. And that and then I understood like, you know, these little chunks of land and things. But I guess I'm just always reminded of like, we have like the family of deer that come through, you know, and I know that they don't live exclusively on our land. They pass through our land, and then they pass through our neighbor's land, and then another neighbor's land, and another's neighbor's land. And I think it's almost more imperative or more important to recognize that we are like receiving the dreams of our ancestors, especially in the most like in the last century or two, where we've been detached from the land, and our ancestors were praying that we would return. And that doesn't mean in one postage stamp piece of land that we call ours. That means the land that like we're receiving those dreams that are reflecting back off the stars, and we are reconnecting to the land like wherever we are. Like it's not about ownership. It's about like, for example, this comes to me a bit, and I don't mean this in a like, it's not, I don't mean this as like, what am I trying to say? I'm so tired, but like, it's not so much about creating a new earth in so much as it's remembering the one that we already have. And I don't mean that against like the new earth movement at all. I'm just saying that like we're reawakening and are in our cells and our DNAs along with the earth. And that is so far and beyond borders and landlines or whatever, like the neighborhood, like, you know, that's cut up on, you look on the maps on the computer and this person's like, you know, this is their, it's so much bigger than that. So much bigger than that. Yeah. So yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant.
I love the part about the ancestors and like living their dreams. Somebody once explained it to me really well as that your ancestors, they live in your DNA, like physically encoded into your DNA, not just the spirit, like, you know, amorphous spiritual idea, but it's physically into your DNA. And anytime that you feel excitement, your DNA is being activated. And those are those dreams of your ancestors that maybe they didn't get to live in their lifetime, but they really wanted to, or they have lived in their lifetime and they loved it, whatever it is that you're feeling excited about. So that's one thing that I always took away from like this, was that just follow your next most exciting thing. And that is like walking the, you know, you're steering the ship for like all your ancestors are on that ship too. Like they're all there experiencing that excitement with you.
Lauren, I really love that. And I feel like I remember the first time I ever like, it's not like I don't channel like another entity. I just I know when something's like just coming through. And the first time I ever had that really, really strong, like, wow, there was words coming out of my mouth and I didn't even know the concept before I was saying it, was when I was chatting with my sister, and she's half Kaskadene and half Jewish. So we grew up calling each other sisters, but we had completely different bloodlines. And she had a lot of struggle in her early teens with cutting and self-harm. And so actually my second mom, her biological mom, took us to Hawaii to do some healing work. And I was just coming out of a messy breakup. And I just remember sitting out on the beach with her and just words coming out of my mouth. And this would have been in like 2004, I think. And I remember saying to her, like, Kaylee, you have generations of trauma in your blood. Like you're feeling energy that's not it's yours, but it's not yours. Like you're a sensitive soul, and you feel it, and it's coming to be healed. Every moment in the now is like this opportunity to bring love to those energies. And I remember like all of this stuff coming, and then thinking, like, both of us afterwards talking about it, and then she eventually, like, it changed the trajectory of her life. She did. And if anyone ever wants to look up her art, it's absolutely gorgeous. It's Kaylee Spitzer's her name. And she does beautiful work with Indigenous BIPOC community that's like unbelievably powerful and healing. But it was like at that time they weren't even talking about how we could carry trauma in our DNA, in our bloodlines. And then within a few years, it started to be talked about, like in the science world. And I remember her reaching out and being like, Jewel, like you were talking about that. Like it's proven now that that's what happens. Like the trauma can be encoded or imprinted into our DNA. But so can bliss, right? So can ecstasy. So can excitement, so can love. Like all of that is also encoded in our DNA and has also been preserved and passed down from mother to daughter and father to son. Like this is oh, my timer. This is how my life's been going lately. That's probably me saying I need to go to bed. But that also has been there. And so again, like where we were talking earlier, like Stefan was saying, like, you put your attention to something and then it changes that thing. It becomes more present. And what Lauren was saying when she was imagining this picking food and eating it right from the garden, and then within weeks it was what her life was. It's this like bringing our attention to the DNA, to the joy and the love and the like. That's, if you could imagine even what your intention is for your own putting forward the energy on the planet, are you wanting to send forward the learning that you've come to it through love, right? That's what you want your lineage to feel, right? That's what you'd want to pass forward. So it's kind of like acknowledging that that's what they want us to feel. That's what, when we experience bliss, we're not just experiencing it for ourselves, we're experiencing it for our whole family lineage. And we're what's the word? We're threading it through. We're strengthening that thread within our physical bodies. The more that we bring our attention to it, like we are literally creating that as a stronger fabric within our physical bodies, the more that we honor and bring attention to it. And that, I think, is like, yeah, like
That's
really
huge. That's huge. You're like speaking to like an exact thought I had today. So this is really interesting. I was writing in my book of kin, this book right here, and I was writing because there's been a lot happening lately on the settlement front, for me. And it's been really accelerating and really fast and really exciting. And at the same time as I'm writing, I was prefacing to my posterity, to my, future descendants. I said, there's so much to tell you, but I need to tell you something first. I need to tell you that I have been forgetting to follow love and follow the feeling. And I have been so focused on this material bringing about. And it's gotten me so much. It's gotten us so much. But I said, like, as I was writing, like, because I was actually, what was making me realize this is like reading past entries. And I'm like reading and I'm listening to my own words and thinking, like, I can see the inspiration. I can feel the inspiration where I was at that point. And the inspiration isn't gone, but it's been channeled into a new way that's kind of like A plus B plus equal, like that sort of way. And as I was writing, I just was like, no, not anymore. Like, not anymore. This is what we've been doing for so long, we've been kind of doing this drudgery of creation, and it's like time to be in that blissful state. Yeah, so what you're saying, the fact that, like, yeah, when we focus on those states of being, when we focus on love, when we focus on feeling, we call it in. We call in that experience to, like, become real in the material sense as well. So yeah, I just found that interesting that was something that was super key for me today. And you guys are highlighting, you, Stefan, Ariane, and Jewel together are just, it's how this community works. It's normal magic.
Yeah, and we are programmed to create systems. So like it's that's part of being alive, right? Like if you think of how a plant, it has this spirit. Every single sunflower on the planet is connected. It has this like holographic idea of what it can be. But like, okay, another good example is self-heal. This plant, the vulgaris, Brunella vulgaris, it's on every continent. And it's like my favorite, it's my soulmate plant. But like it will grow and flower super tall if it's not in a mowed lawn. But if it's in a mowed lawn, it flowers, it learns and it flowers at this height. And so there's an innate intelligence in us. And so we try to create systems. As soon as something goes well, then we're like, okay, now we want to replicate this. And we want to do it again and again. And we get too connected to the system. And like you said, and the reason that we want to create it is inspired by something alive. So it's like bringing our attention back, like training ourselves, like the animals that we are, to come back to that like full awareness. What is our bodies are like compasses, energetic compasses. And when we're being steered by love and we're not just following the system, whether or not it's a system that's been imposed upon us, or it's a system that we've created ourselves. And we're like, oh my gosh, I've imposed this system and now I'm not even awake in my own day, even though I got to create my own day, right? Like we can, so it's almost like, I don't know. It's like, don't be too hard on yourselves. Like it's part of our intelligence too, to create these systems, but it's the evolution is doing the systems and bringing the awareness at the same time. That is like the evolutionary piece.
Totally. You're hitting on something so key, that it is natural. And I think that one thing that's been coming to me lately is that when we get into this space and we fully are embodied in the space, what actually is going to occur is a reorientation of the process of thought. So we've been thinking solely in this community a lot about the speed of thought, which I think is really important, but the orientation of thought, the procession of thought, where it arises from and whence it ends, is going to be different, totally indifferent entirely. And like, we won't, these patternings that we feel like we got to be like, wake up, like that won't be a thing, because we'll be in a totally it's just like a different consciousness. It's like when you do a really deep meditation or something, and all of a sudden you're just like have that aha moment of like, oh, like the I-ness, the isness is just more there. I think that when we get into this space that is conducive to the isness, that like we become a literal like torsion vortex of it all, like, you know what I mean, just like all of it, it's just gonna like light up our whole thought process, and it'll change how we even do that. But you're really speaking to my soul here, Jewel, because I feel like that's exactly what I'm thinking. I'm like, come on, Wyatt, what are you doing? And it's like, it's okay. So I appreciate you saying those words. That's hitting home for me.
This is something Wyatt, Stefan, and I have been experiencing quite intensely the last, I would say, 2 weeks, where there's been this really solid inner guidance that's come in, and it's been like, get ready to drop, get ready to drop how you're interacting with yourself, with other people, with your environment, you know, get ready. And of course, you know, my left brain is like, oh, I got to get ready. I got to prepare and I got to figure this out and I got to da. And then my heart comes in and says, all you have to do is take a step back and let it show you. Like, let yourself receive it and see it and feel it. Be a student all over again, instead of coming in with the, you know, masculine ways and like getting it done and analyzing and all that stuff. Like, to really be a student of simplicity again, you know, a child of the earth again. And immediately, like, I just feel lighter. Just saying those words right now, I feel immensely lighter. And there's a joy that comes back. And it's a really wonderful feeling. So, you know, it's just another reflection of how perfectly designed all of this life is, how we are divinely designed and perfected, and how this design loves us, how the creator loves us so much. It's again another, you know, reinforcement of that. And yeah, taking a step back and letting it, like, yeah, receiving it, being a student, not a student, like literally a
Respond rather than react.
yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I like how you said a student of simplicity. That's huge. That's really resonating.
A number of people I'm connected to, and myself, I was talking in the very beginning, have been having the experience and saying how these past few weeks, these past 2 or 3 weeks, you know, have been different, have been an acceleration. They've been a higher order level of experience. And the guidance, you know, that we talk about, and Ariane, you were just talking about, it's so important and so precious. And it's something that we used to call nature support back in the 70s. But it's more like synchronicity or divine orchestration, where things from on high somehow seem to get organized so that they come together, you know, beautifully, and they dovetail with each other. And, you know, little miracles happen all over the place because there is this kind of divine orchestration that seems to be supporting, helping, bringing things about so that it all works together more beautifully and brings things about that wouldn't otherwise have been brought about. So there's the inner guidance, and there's also that synchronicity in that divine orchestration. And Anastasia talks about when she talked about they, you know, in the earlier books, they helping, the they being, you know, the higher divine energies, the cosmic forces of light that can orchestrate things on planet Earth. And when Vladimir had that, you know, period in Cyprus or wherever it was, where everything just dovetailed and you know, synchronicity took over and divine orchestration took over. So one of the reasons why these past few weeks have been so precious to me is that I experience all of that kind of divine orchestration and synchronicity when I was with Maharishi, but it was his. It was, you know, it wasn't mine in a way, and I was in a way part of him, you know, so I lived it. But when the divine orchestration, comes in for you, like it came in from Vladimir in Cyprus, it's a whole different order of existence and functioning. And it becomes kind of, majorly miraculous. So I just wanted to say that.
Mark, I think this is super important, and it's recalling it. I love how I can read these books, and sometimes when I want to think about a quote, it doesn't happen, and then at these moments, I feel like they just pop up. I remember, I'm not sure what book it was, but Anastasia is saying that God is not visible in the flesh, and so his self is dispersed in particles among all of men. And this gives man the illusion that he's doing things all on his own, but he's not, and that there's actually this great force that's helping man, and that it's really only in that kind of like perfect co-creative harmony that we get things done, or whatever, we want to, we create things that are worthy, I would say, or a living creation. She talks about that, the distinction between dead creations and living creations. So I think that this is super important, Mark, and I appreciate you bringing it up, because it is one of those things to where it makes me feel lighter, as Ariane was saying, that we aren't the ones that are like, we're like the old telephone operators where you're like, oh yeah, you got a call, let me plug you in there, plug you, you know what I mean? Like, we're not doing that. Like, we're just like, well, let's have the will. Like, when there's a will, there is a way. Like, where's that phrase come from? Like, let's just keep our will, let's keep our nature, pure and pristine, and then when we have the will can swim up into the consciousness, and really manifest itself purely and fully. So yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up, Mark. I think it makes me feel easier, like I don't have to try. It's a doing nothing of doing, or sort of thing, doing nothing to do.
And I don't want to put a damper on things and bring in the opposite, but I feel, she talks a lot about the forces of darkness. And the forces of darkness do work to distract us, to circumvent that kind of synchronicity, to, kind of direct us in other ways. But I do believe that they're, even now, they're becoming less and less powerful. And the light is coming in stronger and stronger. But, if we find ourselves kind of getting sidetracked or falling into a loop, or doing things that really aren't all that healthy and beneficial for ourselves, it could very well be that, those kinds of impulses and directives are being sent, or are being triggered within us, by the forces of darkness. And all we have to do is kind of, wake up and remember and say, oh, that isn't really what I want to be doing right now. And come back into, doing what the forces of light are trying to help us do.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's kind of like, and I believe that not by some other person's high hand. I think that just by shedding her image alone, in her impressions, her inspired impressions, that she has basically shown us this light, that anything can be turned onto the path. And yeah, we've heard that from many gurus before. We've heard that from many spiritual teachers, that especially in the Buddhist doctrines, it's like everything can be turned onto the path. But it's like, it feels different now, that for me, with this like clear goal, with it, everything becomes clear when the purpose is reoriented. Plants know their purpose. They grow towards the sun and they connect with the planets and they assist man. It's like man has been trying to figure out his purpose for a millennia or more. He's lost it. And in that reorientation of that, I think it's like we're able to, like, yeah, like Mark was saying, like become awake in those moments of like this, hugely diametrically opposing battle of these forces that are just so large, like it reminds me of Anasta, and like the young bright man in the dark, the dark man. It's like these are huge forces that are, working through us and embodied in all of us, and should be in balance within us all. Yeah, this is huge. It's like I feel like what we're talking about is the preliminary work. Like, again, the theme today for this call just seems to be like these pavers, right? Like stepping stones, the walkway up to your domain, like, the entry gate, like you're walking through it. And we're all becoming kind of aware of the things that are coming up for us in that.
Like the gate of our kin's domain, like that gate that Volodya Theodoret, whatever his name is these days, that he designed when there was an interview. I don't know if everyone's seen it or not. An interview of Vladimir that occurred a long time ago now, maybe 5 or 6 years or less. But he talked about the gate that his son created for the Gins domain they were living on in Germany at the time. And it was like a little house.
Yeah.
And there was a mirror, and you could come in and you could kind of look at yourself and prepare yourself to enter the sacred Kin's domain. And when you just talked about, walking through the gate of light or whatever into the light, I just thought of Volodya's gate into their Kin's domain.
That whole family, as you, and whenever I think about the people in our community who speak about the families, it's you and Arion who speak about these family, the family members a lot. Anasta and Volodya, and you two always come to mind, especially you with Volodya, Mark. When I think about Volodya, there's something that just comes up. Yeah. Just want to respond to PJ. You had asked in the chat, what's kind of like the purpose of what we're doing here. And yeah, like as Ariane just said, bring things to the forefront, let discussion form on its own, discuss the practical steps for yeah. So it's like, I think to sum that up with a couple of words is we're really just like, we're being a community, everything that involves, support in each of our actions moving forward, because each of us are at different points of moving forward, like kind of in this direction, and some of us are different. Yeah, Tutu, spiritual fellowship. Amen. Thank you for bringing those words into me. Like that's what Gabriel always says on his calls. That's really what this is. It's like nobody has to share anything. Nobody has to say anything. That's fine. Sometimes somebody just listening to the conversation, and Ariane and I and Gabriel have just kind of, because we feel strongly, and, it's sort of how it fell into all of our laps, basically. We set set aside time every couple of weeks to really be here and be present for this community, just to speak. We're working off Telegram, we're working off Facebook and an email list, and it's like there's people that are starting to gather, in person, and some people aren't allowed to, so this is kind of that time to solidify these connections.
I could speak to that too. Like when you say solidify the connections, just through the calls, I feel like I have, I guess I feel like I know so many of you to the point where it's I can travel. I could travel across the United States. It's just where I am or wherever, and feel like I have family that I can visit along the way. And I'm planning on that, FYI. I'm driving from Oregon out to Sarasota, Florida, and so I'll need some places to stay. Should probably take me maybe through the Ozarks. I don't know.
I mean, you could do that sort of, like, oh, let's go straight for a little bit and then go down. It's funny, Elizabeth, I was talking with a couple of people about taking a road trip out to Oregon actually this summer. So you're not gonna, and you were like one of the first people that came to mind. So you're not actually gonna be there?
No.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, okay, we'll figure it out. That's cool. We'll meet up. No, in my mind, this summer is like people meeting in person. Like I'm gonna like it's got to happen. Okay, Mark, come to Santa Fe. I'm thinking about going back out to the coast. Then if the Canadian border's open, or I might have to sneak under the line in camo and Arion pick me up at the border. I'm not sure how that's gonna work.
Ooh, that would.
I'm not sure what the status quo on all that stuff is.
Well, maybe we'll be passing each other as we drive and we can meet somewhere.
Yeah, we could meet in Colorado with Ellen Mary. I mean, I've been looking forward to this for like a year, guys. This is like, my heart is like leaping out of my chest because the couple people that I've been able to get around, it's like, I mean, you and Marie just get together?
Yeah, it was awesome. Yes. It was a beautiful meeting.
Awesome.
Yeah, and hopefully the California thing is going to go the first week of June, so that would be really fun. But Kimberly and I are talking about doing a road trip too, and come and meeting y'all, and so we'll make.
I'm very excited for that one because I'll be in California at that time, and it's going to be about 3.5 hours away from where I'm staying, so I'm definitely going to go to that one.
I was just sitting here, because I had my camera off most of the time, just sitting here, just going, oh my gosh, my family. It feels like a family, just sitting here. I've been reading another book called Outwitting the Devil. So I thought about when Mark was talking about the dark forces and how less and less they are in my life, but it's a Napoleon Hill book. The dude who wrote Think and Grow Rich. It took 70 years to get published because everyone was so afraid about the devil. And it's just this interview that Napoleon Hill has with the devil, but he talks about 3 things that takes people to turn them into drifters, is what he calls them. The people who drift. They drift in their thoughts. That's when I can catch them. So they don't have any purpose. I can catch them when they're drifting. But the 3 things is eating too much, eating food that doesn't serve you, having the sexual part of it, all of that. But the 3rd thing was a really important thing. And I really see it. And I thought, what does that really mean? But I've seen it at work this whole hour and a half is expressing loosely organized into expressing loosely organized opinions. I feel like we have been so directed in our opinions, creating vision boards and talking about keeping the focus really powerful. And when you just express loosely an opinion, he said that's when the devil can catch you and take you on. That's when you're drifting. And because I was been thinking about like, what does that really mean? Expressing loosely organized opinions. And this idea of I'm seeing it now working in that way of everyone here so far has been so clear on what the pavers you were talking about. It's not you have to have everything in place. It's just the stepping stones to and if it keeps feeling good, yes, keep going on that paver. If not, take a step back, make another path, whatever it is. It just this delight in, asking, what does this really mean? And then being on a call and just seeing it, seeing the delight in the focused attention that everyone has shared today. And how you all look at each other is really fun too. this idea of, yeah, we could do this on, well, sure, we could have done this on Telegram, back and forth, text, but actually, it takes, all of us are all around the country and sometimes in different countries. And the fact that we can see each other until we hold each other, because it was so easy to just, Elizabeth walks in the restaurant and literally it was so easy just to go, oh my gosh. It's just as if you've just jumped out of the screen, like this little rectangle, so from the rectangle to Elizabeth, and it was so fun we just.
I know, that was so sweet.
I said, I'm so glad you like these long hugs because I don't want to stop. And so it was so fun. It was just so fun and joyous. And
we probably would have hugged the whole time.
For sure. Yes. I'll be prepared. Long hugs.
and squirrel attacks. So Marie's long hugs, Arion's squirrel attacks. So
Flying squirrel.
Yeah, prepare for that. All right.
Wear your mouth guards and knee pads.
Wear some guards, like helmet and stuff. Like it's gonna be a big, long jumping hug. I'd like to take a moment and mirror what you said there, Marie, so beautifully. I'm really happy for you and Elizabeth and the two other beautiful Ringing Cedars members you connected with. Like I was just living through your experience. It was so beautiful. For the first time, Stefan and I met a Ringing Cedars Vancouver Island reader, and she was actually on the call at the beginning, but she wanted to remain off camera. And when she walked in the room, we sat down and we just stared at each other, and it was like staring into the cosmos, like through each other's eyes. I was like, oh my God, this is like intimate. Like this, we're just looking at each other, and it's really profound. I know Mark had the experience, I'm sure, with Eliyahu and Michelle too. It's like really incredible. To meet in person is a whole other degree of connection. And that's why you need to have your mouth guard and your helmet and some bodyguards around. Yeah, it's going to be amazing to meet all of you. I'm so excited.
The best part was that after the hug, we didn't even sit down before, we just went deep. There was nothing it was as if the world went away and there was just the three of us. And it was just so, oh my God, it was just exquisite.
Mm-hmm. It was definitely clear and on purpose. And nowhere could a dark force have penetrated that.
I connected somewhat deeply with Nadia today. And I don't know if any of you know her story.
Yeah, Nadia Gutwald.
Nadia Hope.
Oh, so there's two Nadias in our group. I was thinking of the Nadia. She's actually from Russia, and she has her own domain kind of in Minnesota. But sorry, go ahead, Nadia.
That's her. She's going by Nadia Hope now.
Oh, okay.
At least, but she was born in Russia. And when she was 13 years old, her parents gave her the first book of Anastasia, which she read, of course, in Russian. And it was the only one out. And they all read each successive one as it came out in Russian. And just, that experience, there are probably how many people in Russia who had that experience? Maybe 1 million or so, or whatever it is. But can you imagine, starting to read these books when you were 13 years old in the original Russian? Just imagine it for a minute. It just, we communicated about a lot of different things, but that experience, it just kind of blew me away how beautiful it would have been to get that book when you were 13, and then to get each subsequent one as it came out, and to grow up reading these books.
My sister's in a similar position, Mark. I gave her book 1, and she's read book 1. And she was just like, I think we've all had this experience, which is just interesting coming from the mouth of a 14-year-old, that like, this just makes so much sense. This just makes so much sense. It's like, it's almost like Carrie and I were talking about this, that, we get this from kind of the Greek philosophy, all knowledge is simply remembering, and it's interesting, like true knowledge, true information. It's like, it feels familiar, as we were talking about this DNA earlier. It feels familiar. That's, I think, how we have this truth meter within us. We're like, this feels right. This feels, maybe it's that familiarity. But it's interesting, Mark, yeah, to think about being at that age and being exposed to all of these people. Oh my gosh. I can't even, like, just the story alone, the characters, like, whew, man, it's got to do something. That's huge. I wanted to jump 1 second back to what Marie was saying, because something in there is just really, I feel really called to share. Like, you were saying the loose opinions about organized topics. What was it?
Expressing loosely organized opinions.
Expressing loosely organized opinions. Yeah, I feel like this group, there is this burning inferno inside of this community, this group, that is like, it is pure, it's not wavering. It's a matter of how in alignment are you with that purity. You know what I mean? And this purity doesn't start and stop with Gabriel, or start and stop with any of the members in here. It doesn't even start and stop with Russia. It doesn't even start and stop with Anastasia. Like, this purity is coming from somewhere else, entirely, that we all know deeply and familiar, we know very intimately. But it's just interesting to see that in each of our eyes, and see that in each of what we do, of like the capacity that we people, man and women of the earth, are allowing this to make itself known, and to live and work through us, to be the hands and feet of that purity, of that fire, is just kind of this amazing experience. Like, I was just chatting with Gabriel, and it's like, yes, what an honor, right? And it's like, the work that we have done to get to this place is huge. Like, all of us, like what we've done, not just in this lifetime, as Jewel was talking about, like, this is all temporary, and if we take that perspective and we go and put that into the concept of time, it's like, what we've all done to be able to even be at this mindset where we can say, like, I'm going to co-create a space of love. Like, just saying those words alone is like, whoa. The universe is like applauding, they're like, look, man is here. Like, he's going to win, and it's, so I just think it's such an honor, exactly, to be in this fire with all of you, it's huge.
And the fact that, because I thought, I really wanted to say something to that, but I just thought, I was thinking, I don't want to express loosely organized opinions. Really wanted to think about the fact that we let that silence go by for a second, and the allowance of the beauty of silence too. The silence between thoughts, the silence, that feels really important too, is that it isn't just about, hey, let's just throw a bunch of things in here. The importance of the wisely chosen thoughts, and that I love it when they bing off of each other. But there's something so beautiful about just letting silence go, because I was gonna, like, I wonder that, and then I thought, well, really, what are you gonna say here? What? And just to say something, just to say it, also feels really important here, that we're allowing silence and the listening, and the silence and the listening. Because I loved it that I wasn't on camera for an hour and a half into the call, because I really just wanted to experience the sharing. I wanted to experience the sharing without thinking that I had to say something or do something until I was just ready. I was ready to share. And so I just felt like I needed to say that.
Thank you. You expressed organized concepts. Thank you.
Oh yeah, I really appreciate that. Listening, observing, and then being like ready to share. I often feel that I kind of like sit back and sometimes it can take me a while to share. Other times I have like just something to say right away. And I also appreciate that having hosts, like Ariane and Gabriel and Wyatt and even and Agata on the European calls, who can really are part of the conversation to like help bridge those silences, help give us something, because when you're the host, it's kind of you're leading us, you're guiding us. But then when you're on a call and somebody else is the host, then you have the opportunity to sit back and observe. And so it's just I'm really grateful for you all for doing that, because you do like carry the conversation at the same time allowing for those silences, and it really is beautiful. Has anybody ever read a book called The Book of Mirdad? Does anybody know that book? It's a pretty fabulous book that was, I don't know when it was written, but it's pretty intense, like as far as it's written in kind of like an old English, but there's so many similarities between the Anastasia books and then what this is saying, and what you were saying earlier, Wyatt, about well, anyway, okay, so I'm kind of like forgetting some things, but anyway, what you were saying just before we started talking, just before the silences, it really reminded me about the dualities between humans. And there's this passage in this book that came up, and I'm wondering if y'all would be down for me to read it. It's like 3 pages. I don't think it'll take me too long, maybe like 5 minutes. Would y'all be down for me to read?
I feel like if you feel like this is viable, then please, by all means.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites, and I really love it. Okay, so the chapter is called the colloquy between two archangels.
Can you just say that? Sorry, can you just say that for all those watching this later? Can you just say the name and the author real fast?
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so it's called The Book of Mirdad, and it's by Mikhail Naimi. Okay, I guess it's backwards. But yeah, I can put it in the description too. But this is chapter 14, and it's the colloquy between two archangels and the colloquy between two archdemons at the timeless birth of man. And so this is the author, or the person in the story, his name is Mirdad, and he says, at the timeless birth of man, two archangels at the upper pole of the universe held the following colloquy. Said the first archangel, a wondrous child has been born unto earth, and earth is ablaze with light. Said the second archangel, a glorious king has been born unto heaven, and heaven is athrob with joy. Said the first, he is the fruit of the union twixt heaven and earth. Said the second, he is the union eternal, the Father, the Mother, and the Child. Said the first, in him is earth exalted. Second, in him is heaven justified. Said the first, day is asleep in his eyes. Second, night is awake in his heart. In the first, his breast is a nest of gales. In the second, his throat is a scale of song. In the first, his arms embrace the mountains. Second, his fingers pluck the stars. First, seas are roaring in his bones. Second, suns are coursing in his veins. First, a forge and a mold in his mouth. Second, a hammer and an anvil his tongue. First, round his feet are the chains of tomorrow. Second, in his heart is the key to the chains. First, yet cradled in dust is this babe. Second, but swaddled in eons is he. First, like God does he hold of numbers every secret. Like God does he know the mystery of words. Second, All numbers does he know, but the sacred one, which is the first and last. All words does he ken, save the creative word, which is the first and last. First. Yet shall he know the number and the word. Second. Not till he walks his feet away over the trackless wastes of space, nor till he looks his eyes away upon the dismal vaults of time. First. Oh, wondrous, too wondrous is this child of earth. Second. Oh, glorious, too glorious is this King of heaven. First. The nameless called him man. Second. And he called the nameless God. First. Man is the word of God. Second. God is the word of man. First. Glory to him whose word is man. Second. Glory to him whose word is God. First. Now and forever. Second. Here and everywhere. So spoke the two archangels at the upper pole of the universe at the timeless birth of man. At the same time, two archdemons at the nether pole of the universe were holding the following colloquy. Said the first archdemon, "A valiant warrior has joined our ranks. With his aid we shall conquer." Said the second archdemon, "A whining and a sniveling coward, rather say, and treason is encamped on his brow, yet terrible is he in his cowardice and treason." First, fearless and wild is his eye. Second, tearful and tame is his heart, yet fearful is he in his tamelessness and tears. First, keen and persistent is his mind. Second, slothful and dull is his ear, yet dangerous is he in his sloth and his dullness. First, swift and precise is his hand. Second, hesitant and sluggish is his foot, yet dreadful is his sluggishness and alarming is his hesitance. First, our bread shall be steel to his nerves, our wine shall be fire to his blood. Second, our bread bins he shall stone with us, our wine jars he shall break upon our heads. First, his lust for our bread and his thirst for our wine shall be his chariot in battle. Second, with hunger unappeasable and thirst unquenchable, he shall be made unconquerable and raise rebellion in our camp. First, but death shall be the charioteer. Second, with death as his charioteer, he shall become immortal. First, shall death lead him to aught but death? Second, aye, so wearied shall death be of his constant whining that he shall drive him in the end into the camp of life. First, shall death be a traitor to death? Second, nay, life shall be faithful to life. First, his palate we shall tease with rare and delectable fruit. Second, yet shall he long for fruit not grown upon this pole. First, his eyes and nose we shall entice with bright and fragrant flowers. Second, yet shall his eye seek other flowers and his nose another fragrance. First, and we shall haunt his ears with sweet but distant melodies. Second, yet shall his ear be towards another choir. First, fear shall enslave him to us. Second, hope shall protect him from fear. First, pain shall subdue him to us. Second, faith shall deliver him from pain. First, we shall impall his sleep with puzzling dreams and strew his wakefulness with enigmatic shadows. Second, his fancy shall undo the puzzles and melt away the shadows. First, withal we can count him as one of us. Second, count him with us if you wish, but count him against us also. First, can he at once be with us and against us? Second, he is a lonely warrior in the field. His only adversary is his shadow. As shifts the shadow, so the battle shifts. He is with us when his shadow is in front. He is against us when his shadow is behind. First, shall we not keep him then with his back forever to the sun? Second, but who shall keep the sun forever at his back? First, a riddle is this warrior. Second, a riddle is this shadow. First, hail to the lonely night. Second, hail to the lonely shadow. First, hail to him when with us. Second, hail to him when against us. First, now and forever. Second, here and everywhere. So spoke two archdemons at the nether poles of the universe at the timeless birth of man.
There's a lot of really, really powerful imagery in that.
Yeah. I really felt called to share that just because of how much it encompasses the battle of like mortal thought. And then at the same time, the archdemons are acknowledging that even with the temptations, there's still this thing that we will yearn for, that we will search for, that God particle that's within us. And we'll really never succumb to it. But at the same time, going through this battle, which is similar to what I think Anastasia and Nasta is talking about in the 10th book, with having to balance it, or actually what they're saying is like in the beginning, the first humans went down the biological path and then erased everything from all, even the like Akashic records or the dimension of the forces of light, so that we don't know what the biological universe, the biological path is like, so that we could fully go down the technocratic path, and then come to it on our own. Yeah. It's just huge. It's so big.
Yeah, no, it is. It's like we've all we are accumulating knowledge and information that is guiding us into the path that we fully are embodied. It brings up questions for me as a person who thinks about these things, and I'm sure with many others, but I think my questions get answered, and the prayer that God has to man, is don't really, he says, in summary, like, don't try to think about it. Just be happy. Be happy is all I ask of you. Be happy. Again, you're going away. Be happy, I ask of you, And that rings so true to me, because a part of me wants to figure out, like, why have we gone down such this long road, And yeah, this story really kind of shines a lot. And it's interesting you felt really called to share this, because this felt like a lot of little keys and a lot of little locks. So thank you.
Which the keys for are in our heart.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Somebody asked what was being read. They missed the intro to the reading.
Oh yeah, I'll type it in right now.
I'd like to re-invoke Marie's silence. I love silence, but I wanted to invoke the silence from which all creation comes. And I'd like to talk about the group meld. The meld. Sometimes when you're talking with your friend, either if they're in the same room with you or not, this thing happens where you drop down into silence sometimes, but you drop down into a communion. You drop down into a soul union. Um, and that can happen with the group as well, where on some deeper level, the whole group melds, the whole group comes together on a deeper level. And there's a union and a coherence and a oneness that goes beyond all separation. And you can meld with a disincarnate spirit. You can meld with a plant. You can meld with an animal. And you can have a group meld, which to me is a very sacred, wonderful, ecstatic thing. And which we were just having, and I might, have put an end to it, but I just wanted to express it explicitly.
I think it's important, Mark, to take that and remember that, like, it never starts and stops. This melding, like we all, I was just reading book 2 today, and Anastasia says to Vladimir that around a person who is there, a space of love has been created, is this eternal life, and that she's communicating with him now and he can hear her, and he's like, how am I able to hear your voice now? How am I able? And she's like, you need to learn not to listen so much with your ears but with your heart. She's like, I'm always there. I think each of us, when I think about all of us, what I think about is that, let me just take like Arion for an example. Arion has like this inspired thought about a food forest or about doing some certain thing, and because that thought is inspired, what my understanding is, and please, I'm open to so many, like we all are, to interpretations of this, but my understanding from the books and from my own heart is that that thought goes up into space, and that it's accessible to anybody who wants to touch it and reach it. And I think that is what is different about this group. And when I want to bring back is what you're saying about this melding, is that I don't think it's the how. In this case, it's the where. We are melding in a different place than most people. We are melding in this place of bright thoughts of the future. And there's been so many communities and people before that have been able to succinct their thoughts together. And that collective energy is really powerful. I think it's how. That's a big part of what we're doing, is how. But I do think it's where. Where we place our attention on is this eternal future for our loved ones, our little ones. And they are like helping us as we establish in this call, this ancestral line. And so it's like when we each have these bright thoughts, I feel like they go up into space and we're able to like touch and communicate with each other up there. And like, I might not be able to distinguish right now in myself as like, oh, that's Arion's daughter, that's Marie, that's Mark's, but it's like we are interacting nonetheless. Like I feel with each other on this. I mean, there's times when, like, if I think of you all and I'm like in meditation, like my heartbeat immediately, like my heart starts pulsing stronger. I mean, I feel it. I have my hands on my chest and I can call you guys all in and I can feel my heart start to audibly beat louder. So it's this interesting thing to where it's so playful and it's so natural, it's this thing I think that we're born to do.
You know what I love? This is so fun. I love this part because like especially with the little things like when I get up at 6 o'clock, which sometimes I don't. But when I do, I go, oh, I wonder who else is thinking bright thoughts. And the times where you say, at noon, every other Sunday or whatever it is, go out and, step on the ground. This, because I'm in a new place, there's this beautiful, you should see my view is so incredible. So I went out and just stood on the grass, even though it had just snowed in my bare feet. It just so it's the snow, my feet, and just for 10 minutes, I thought I could do this for 10 minutes. And just to think wherever we are, whatever time zone, that is kind of like I felt the wave of everyone, whatever, it just felt so extraordinary. And because I'm out in the forest here, it felt even more so that it was like kept looking up and going, oh my God, there's beautiful trees with me too. How lovely is this? And just to feel the wave of everyone was so, regardless of whether you were doing it or not. To me, that part doesn't matter. It's the intention and it was more of how I was feeling, and I was feeling that wave. And I thought, well, what if somebody read this months ago and they put it on their calendar today and they're out in Russia and they're thinking the same thing that I am, their wave of whatever time zone noon was for them. And that wave is coming towards me. And there was something that's so glorious, that there's something that feels so flippant intentional about this specific group. Like I've said before in calls that I've been a part of so many of these freedom groups that want freedom. They want freedom in their lives from tyranny, but they only want to talk about the tyranny part. They only want to talk about the sad sack part. And when you bring up something, you feel like you're annoying people by being joyful. And it is so fun to be able to be myself. And if somebody isn't joyful, I just haven't seen it in this group that I feel like, oh no, tap down your light, Marie. I haven't felt that. I think that's why I stayed off camera for 3 calls. I wanted to see, is this a playground that I want to play in? Because I'm certainly flipping tired of, putting a bushel on my light. So it's really fun I'll thank Elizabeth forever for, talking about what if we could be 400 years old and still have children? And I went, oh my God, I've wanted to talk about this forever. Okay. And it just, like this light just came on, this flare. Oh my God. Okay. I'll turn on my camera now. Here we go. Choom. And it was so fun to, this like what I thought was going to be the lead in. What is going to be the lead in? It had to be something so extraordinary, like somebody talking about being 400 years old and having children. Like I thought, okay, that's a big playground. I want to play. So that's why it's just been so fun. And we're all holding space for each other for betterment. We're all holding space for each other. And the fact that you didn't, Wyatt, that you didn't have and we're going to talk about A, B, and C. And I don't mind that because I love it when Gabriel does that on Sunday's call. It was real specific. I love talking about this. Let's talk about it. And everybody did. But the fact that you gave us all of this space, like, where are we going to drop the needle? And if you don't want to drop the needle here, we'll drop the needle somewhere else, and then it'll be just as joyful. It doesn't matter the subject; it's matter how you make me feel. And the feeling that I get is I can be more myself here.
It's truly a co-created pleasure here. This is all of us together. It's really something awesome.
Yeah, the conversations, like, I look forward to these even more so than some of the conversations that I have really enjoyed in the past. At one point in time, the conversations that I was having like 4 years ago, those were new. but they kind of like, they're not new anymore. And they're a little stagnant, and it kind of is like going in these circles, and like my the pace of my thinking maybe is just speeding up, and like the pace of others around me maybe isn't, or something. And so I feel like sometimes I have these conversations with old friends, and it's like, this is the same conversation I've been having, and this is like at least 4 years old, 5 years old, and it doesn't even have to be like linear like that. It's just like I'm giving that as kind of like an example to bring up a feeling of something that feels old, and then like, but I've been having these conversations with myself for like 10 years, and those aren't getting old. But now I have a group of people who are able to have this conversation with me, and I'm just like, I actually choose to be here instead of in a different place, because I know the conversation that I'm having here tonight is going to be up like this. Whereas the conversation I've actually like left early some calls so I could go have conversations because it was with like a friend or something. And then just like the conversation just was not as, it just wasn't as fulfilling, because it was kind of like keeping us in our old patterns, and like, an old fashioned chat kind of thing. And it's just not what I get, not into that. And so I'm really grateful to choose this one when I know that the conversation is going to expand, and it's going to help me expand and help me be more resourced, actually, so that I can show up better. Yeah.
That means a lot, I know, to all of us, that you take that much benefit from this, because I feel the same way, like the exact same way. Like, I mean, I'm like lit up, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like my cells are like doing a little tango, you know what I mean? Like, that's how it feels. You know, I wanted something that's coming up for me that I don't want to jump back to 2 calls ago, but I think it's relevant to reiterate these points that are important of what you're saying is language is the precursor to culture. So it's important that like the way that we speak and those around us who are speaking in different words, like we've talked about this before, Ariane, like how like the books have literally made our internal like reservoir of vocabulary like be broader and be more descriptive and be more able to talk about things that maybe other people are like, well, this and this, and now we have words and we have feelings. We know we can take combinations that have resonated with us, and we can say, I like that combination, let me use that here in this conversation. And sometimes I don't know exactly why I'm using a certain combination, it just feels good, and we're just like, da, da, da. Yes, more creatively inclined too. Yeah, totally. And it's like the language is becoming this creative expression rather than this like computer code. It's kind of what English language has felt like for so long, it's like this very like subject, predicate, like and now it's kind of like, ooh, here it is. It's powerful. Thank you.
That's what I loved about when Gabriel, or maybe it wasn't Gabriel, whoever put the Leonid video about what it is to have a KINS domain. And I don't know if any of you saw that video, and if I find it, okay. Oh, it was you? Awesome.
Oh, no, I was just waving.
Yes. It was so much more enjoyable because I had listened to I wasn't on that call 2 calls ago, but I tell you, I sent it to Kimberly and we talked about it for days. Because she wasn't on the call either, about the choosing of the words and how important those words are and what kind of direction do you want to take. And so it's really, it's so funny because I just picked a card today because I'm kind of playing with the tarot deck. And so the card that I picked for me, I don't know if any of you are tarot wizards, but the 3 of Swords. And this was me, when I picked the me card, I went, oh my. And swords are words and words and thoughts and words. And I thought, every time that I say something that isn't serving the good, it is like I'm sticking another sword, not in my liver, not in my head, but in my heart. And so I left the spread up because I want to take that in. This has been in other positions in the spread that I like to do, but this time it came in as me. And I think it's really so that to me, that the video that was done two times ago was still very meaningful in the use of words, and then you get to choose. It's almost like you're planting a garden with your words. What would be, what would be a lovely pink flower with the yellow ones? What would make this, I don't know if you guys know about Three Sisters gardening, and maybe you do, but it's new to me. But the idea that, using the sunflower so that the beans have a stalk, and the squash helps with the weed factor, and the fact that the beans have the nitrates that the two of them need. I mean, I'm sorry, that is a new. I grew up on a farm. We did not follow that. We followed the tilling world, and instead of covering with cardboard and seeing the weed suppression instead of the no-till gardens. That's such a new thing for me. Still lovely food. I'm so glad I grew up on a farm. I'm so glad Mom handed me a basket and said, go pick the salad. I loved it that I had the opportunity to do that. And what could be the idea of what could be better, instead of I'm so mad that happened to me. Like, what could be better? And the thoughts and words are. I'm so glad you brought that up, Wyatt, because it's that specifically, that conversation 2 times ago was impactful and still is impactful. As soon as you said it, I had that inhalation of breath, like, oh my God, that's a video that altering video that you go, man, other people are talking about this too. And where better can we use the betterment of our language? Because you're right. Subject, predicate, verb, predicate, it feels so clunky. The English language feels so clunky. And even in this video that Leonid, this beautiful video where, wait a minute, just like you were saying about your kin's domain, you're not ready for it. Well, I'm not even ready to, when, like what he was saying is that when we grew up, and I remember doing this, is if you put your cans of food in the mailbox, we'll mail it to the people in Russia because they're, quote unquote, we think they're starving. And they're like, we don't need a store because we grow our food. Goofballs. And so, this idea of languaging is exquisite. And I want to hear that video again, not only the one you did two times ago, but also this Leonid video that just feels like, oh my gosh, what a different way of looking at the experience of being on a kin's domain, instead of what I think it is, the romanticized version where I walk in and it's already done.
Awesomeness. The one thing that's coming through from some of my philosophy courses, what you're saying, is the Greeks they had this concept called poesis, the poet, and they considered a farmer a poet. He was a poet. They considered a blacksmith a poet. They considered a law person a poet. They considered if you did anything that you were a poet. And I think that's interesting as we're moving, before I had read the Anastasia books, I really had felt like humanity is coming into a new renaissance where we're going to be re-experiencing life and using new language and tools to be able to everything is going to be poetic and creative. And now I have read these books and it's so clear that that's what we're moving into. But I think that's a wonderful share, Marie. I do want to, it's 9/11 here in my time. I just do want to honor everybody's time. But I really want to leave the floor open for anybody who has any lasting remarks to share. This has been a absolutely wonderful call, really packed with some really good stuff. So super grateful to be here. And yeah, I want to leave space for anybody to share anything here.
I just wanted to say thanks for all the good vibes. Just been hanging out, listening to y'all, enjoying the conversation. I haven't shared it all actually beforehand before this today, but that's fine. There were so many times during the thing I'd be like, oh, I could say that, I could say this, but it just wasn't necessary today. It was such a beautiful flow in the call, and everyone who was needing to speak and be heard was doing just that. So I just wanted to say something before bidding you all a good evening.
Brian, thank you. It's always an honor and a pleasure to have you here, Brian. You bring a really ancient energy with you, so thank you for being here.
Brian, you're in Hawaii, right? That's where you are?
Yes.
Cool. Are you in connection with anybody else that's in Hawaii? Like,
I mean, I've communicated with many of the folks who have been in these calls, and but yeah, haven't been in person with most people, but with a couple people.
mm-hmm.
It's really cool. Share some other circles with other folks as well, and know a couple people. So yeah, it's really nice that there's a strong Hawaii group.
Yeah, it is. I was actually like, I don't know that I was really expecting that, like for Hawaii to be so strong in there, and so in the kind of the forerunners, I suppose, of this whole like where I'm looking at, there's lots of energy happening, and like Hawaii is definitely one of them, and then like now the Tennessee area, and there's actually a lot going on in Florida and the Ozarks, and just like yeah, it's just I expected Texas. I expected like that area just because of what of what was predicted in the books. It's just really nice to see it spread so wide. And yeah, and then of course our lovely Canada, it's everywhere.
I think the what she said too is like the because I honestly just reread that. This is so interesting. So many things that people are bringing up, I've just reread. It's just kind of interesting. I just read the John Heitzman story, and yeah, I think she says though at the end, like the name, the person, the location is not important. What's important is the image. She's like, Vladimir, did you like the story? And he's like, I liked it very much. And she's like, do you think other people will like it? And he's like, well, I'm sure that they will. And she's like, see, that's how it will happen. People like the image, and they'll continue to create it. And it's like, oh yeah, it is that simple. But like, it might be some really cool guy on Hawaii. I had I did this long yoga practice today, and that's irrelevant except for the fact that I was so tired after it that I like fell asleep in Shavasana, like fell asleep for an hour. And I like woke up, and I didn't realize I had this image in my head until I was sitting up. And I remember having this image of a Hawaii center. And it was like this, like, I saw this blueprint of like multiple buildings. And it was like, I don't understand it at all in my brain, but I just like woke up and I was like, oh yeah, that's right. I had that image come to my head. So the Heitzman guy could be some guy in Hawaii, or he could be some guy in Minnesota or New York or, Connecticut. It doesn't matter. I think it's just like the idea that, yeah, there's millionaires paying for gas in New York. There's going to be people helping us out here. We're changing the world, the blueprint. So, yeah.
Wow.
Thanks, everyone. Bye. Have a good night.
Yeah. Thank you all.
Thank you so much for a wonderful call, everyone.
No problem. This has been awesome, guys. I'll have the recording up in a couple of days. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.